Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the first official episode of the Divine Feline Podcast. My name is Crystal. I am the creator and host of this podcast. I am a writer, I'm a matcha lover, I am a cat mama of three, and I am most importantly, obsessed with self improvement. I'm obsessed with growing and just becoming a better person, manifesting and putting active steps towards creating my dream life. And I have created this podcast because I am looking for a community of women that are like-minded in that way, who want to grow, who want to push the needle forward, who see the value and the potential in themselves and want to create massive impact, but may be struggling in certain areas of their lives and feel stuck. And the goal of this podcast is ultimately to help women move forward. I was created by a woman, I am for women, and this podcast is in service of creative, ambitious women that want to make a difference in the world. I think there are a lot of obstacles that we as people in general, spiritual beings first, but, you know, we're not going to deny that there aren't certain challenges that we as women specifically face. So I want to talk about those challenges. I want to talk about the things that make it hard to move forward, whether that's, in your career, your business, whether that's in finding the love of your life, whether that's in learning to love yourself and truly accept yourself and everything that you are and everything that you aren't. Whether that's in struggling to find a community that supports you and that loves you. There's so many different things that we can get into, but overall, my mission, the goal of this podcast is to help women move forward. And so what we're going to be doing on this podcast is, one, you will hear personal stories from me. You will hear advice. You will hear my own personal revelations. And I like to look at things holistically, right? I like to look at these issues from a psychological perspective, from a spiritual perspective, because I am a woman of God. And also like a practical perspective, like more of an earthly, let's say, an earthly perspective. And then on the other side of things, we will also be having some amazing, beautiful, strong, badass women come on this podcast, and we are going to talk to them about struggles that they've had and how they've overcome it, or even current struggles that they're facing and what they're doing to move forward in life. At the end of the day, I am me and I have my own experiences and I have my own feelings, and it's not always going to resonate with you. So I do think having multiple perspectives through connecting with other women and having them share their stories, that is going to be huge here. And I think that's going to be really impactful for you guys. So that is what you can expect from this podcast. All of my women who want to move forward, this is the podcast for you. So without further ado, I want to hop into the episode. But before I do just want to say thank you so much to every and anyone who is tuning in. If you are streaming this on Spotify or on Apple or whatever streaming service you are listening on, thank you so much. I really appreciate the fact that you felt connected to this podcast in some way, whether it was the cover art, whether it's the title, whether it's the mission statement. Regardless, it resonated with you enough to click on the episode and tune in. And I hope that I'm able to add value and be of service to you through this episode. I hope that it connects to your soul in some way. And same for my YouTube audience who's ever watching the visual pod. Hello, welcome to the podcast. Lovely to see you. I'm saying this like I can see you, but still lovely to see you. I just needed to say a huge thank you. I want to hop into today's episode. So today we are going to be exploring the concept of learning how to choose yourself and how to allow yourself to be selfish. This topic in particular really resonates with me because I'm going through that right now. I think I've been going through this for a majority of my life. And I think a lot of women can relate to this, especially if you're like a first daughter or the only daughter. You already probably know what I'm talking about. Like, we are expected from a very young age to be the nurturers, to be the caregivers. A lot of times for people that already have the capacity to take care of themselves or should be holding the responsibility of taking care of themselves, yet we are expected to be the ones to tend to them. And a lot of times as we get older, that manifests into putting other people in our lives over ourselves. Um, and I think there are a few different reasons behind that, and we're going to get into the why in a second. But first, I want to start with the way that this manifests in real life, and identify if you might be someone that's struggling with this. So, for me, when it comes to choosing myself, I've always struggled with that. And I'm at this phase in my life where it's just becoming so much more obvious and it's becoming that much more detrimental to me and to my goals. So, for example, sometimes I'll find that I don't have enough time. Like, I will set goals for the month, and then by the end of the month, maybe I completed one or two of them, or like I made a little bit of progress, but I had 30 days and I could have easily done that in like 2 weeks. And by the end of the month, I'm nowhere near where I could have been had I just prioritized myself. And then I find myself feeling resentful when other people in my life who I did prioritize over myself, whether I decided to give them my time, my energy, whatever it was, when they're moving forward in their goals and in their mission because, they are prioritizing themselves, or because I showed up for them, or because I gave them my energy or the motivation or whatever it was to propel them forward, to inspire them to move forward. I think if you are someone who your friends always come to, if you're the person that everyone wants advice from, if you're the person that's like the feel good friend where whenever someone is in a rut, they want to hang out with you because you just have this magnetic energy. You have this uplifting energy. You empower people. You inspire people to level up, to be their best selves. You're honest with people. You keep it real. Like, I very much am that person, and I'm proud of that, and I'm thankful for that. I think that I am, or I know that I am a giver, and I'm someone who can help a person like truly create miracles in their lives by helping them change their mindset. And I know that about myself. And I'm sure if you're watching this video, you're probably the same way. And while that's a beautiful thing, and I think it's important that we utilize that gift and we do help people move to the next level in their lives, we can't do it to the point where it's detrimenting ourselves and it's stunting our own growth and our own progress. Because what happens is when we put those other people first, we end up feeling resentful towards them. We end up feeling upset with ourselves. And then it makes you not even want to really go out of your way for anyone anymore. Putting people above myself and catering to their needs first has also at times made me feel unmotivated to accomplish my own goals. And I say that because when I'm giving so much of my time and so much of my energy, like feeding into someone else and accomplishing their goals, at the end of the day, I end up feeling like I don't have any of that energy to give to myself. And then this also ties back into the idea of feeling like I don't have enough time. Whenever I feel like I don't have enough time to accomplish something, I get overwhelmed. And when I'm overwhelmed, I freeze up. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of the term like like analysis paralysis, where like instead of just doing the thing, you're in research mode. It's kind of like that, where whenever I'm overwhelmed like by all of my goals and I feel like I don't have enough time, I freeze up and I just don't do anything. And a lot of times that is a direct consequence of putting other people before myself. Before we get into solutions, I think it's important that we explore why we put ourselves last. So I did touch on this a little bit earlier, but now we're going to dive deep into this. Childhood. I'm going to speak from my own experience. I know there are going to be people that resonate with this. There are going to be some people that may not feel aligned, but I do think the majority of you will feel me when I say this. You know, being the only daughter, and for me personally, growing up in a West Indian household, there was definitely this expectation placed on me that wasn't necessarily placed on my male siblings, um and or even just like the men in my family. So from a young age, I was taught like before I ate, I would actually be the one to serve the men in my family. I was responsible for cleaning up their dishes after they ate. And I always felt like there was something off about that. Like I remember feeling like I was the child, or I am the child, so why do I have to clean up after the adults? Why do I eat second to the adults? And obviously, like as I got a little bit older, I became a little bit more conditioned. And so there was this idea of like, okay, well, they are my elders. And so it's out of respect. You know, they've lived on earth longer, so then they should be eating first, if you know what I mean. Um, Obviously, as I got even older, I realized that that was social conditioning. That was a direct consequence of my culture. And I love my culture. I love where I come from. I love my people. It's nothing against that, but it's crazy how little things like that, when you get older, you realize how much you've actually internalized, and how little habits like that or little mindsets like that can manifest in massive ways. So something as simple as me being taught from a young age that you need to feed other people before you feed yourself made me realize, or made me feel like other people and their basic needs, because it's something as basic as feeding someone, or eating for yourself, something like that, a basic essential need, mine comes second to everyone else. That was what that taught me. And so I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. Maybe as a young woman, you played the role of mother to an older male sibling or a younger male sibling, or maybe in a way you played mother to your own father. You've taken on this role and it was praised, right? You were validated. You were called a good girl whenever you did something for another person, when really what you wanted to do was actually be alone with yourself. When what you wanted to do was lay in bed and binge watch a movie and eat pizza and be left the hell alone. No, instead you showed up and you were there for other people. And that is something that is commendable. I do agree. But not when it's at a detriment to yourself, not when you are suppressing your own desires or ignoring your own needs to be in service of other people, because that's where that resentment then builds up. That's where that anger and that frustration and that depression and that anxiety builds up. It's the suppression of your own desires and your own needs, and you being the one that is facilitating that, you being the one that is creating that environment to allow that to persist, right? So it's a mindset thing that we have to break. So that's one reason, and it's a really big reason why a lot of us feel like it's hard to put ourselves before other people. I also want to talk a little bit about the idea of selfishness and the shame that many women feel around the act of being selfish because of the way that we define being selfish and the way that women have been demonized for being quote unquote selfish. So I have my own relationship with this word, and it stems from an experience where one of my parents basically said to me when I was very young, they called me very selfish because I had eaten all of the food that was left over and I didn't leave any for my sibling. And so I was called selfish. And I am not sure why, but that really stuck with me for years. And it still does affect me sometimes. Like, I won't even lie. Whenever I choose myself or whenever I set a boundary, I still struggle with feeling like maybe I'm being too selfish. Maybe I'm being too protective of my time. Maybe I'm being too protective of my energy. Maybe I am being difficult, especially when you have people that don't respect your boundaries or are not used to you putting boundaries in place and get upset by that. Other times when people are okay with me setting boundaries, I still feel like, well, you know what? I should put this boundary aside because maybe this person really does need me. And it's this weird dynamic. A lot of us feel like being selfish makes us either bad people, it makes us less of a nurturer, less of a caretaker. It also can make us feel like we aren't valuable. It's kind of like the idea of being a beautiful woman. In society, when you're young, when you're beautiful, you know, the world is handed to you on a silver platter because men or people in general, really, because women do it too, right? Like, they're finding you desirable. They like what they see. They are benefiting off of something that you represent. And so your value to them is tied to your attractiveness, and then you internalize that. And it's the same thing with giving your time and your energy. Other people are benefiting from that, and so they are valuing you for that. And so when you set that boundary, you may feel like your value has gone down because now you're no longer being of service to them, quote unquote. You're no longer making yourself available to them so they cannot benefit off of you. And so now your value in their mind has gone down. And that bothers you. And it could bother you because it's someone that you really do love and care about. It could bother you because that's how you value yourself. And if you aren't giving, you feel disconnected from yourself. You feel like you're not deserving of love or acceptance or whatever it is in return if you're not giving something first. I also want to explore this idea of receiving validation from other people for being selfless. You are not benefiting from being selfless all of the time. Yes, it is a positive trait to have, to be selfless, to be kind, to be a giver. Like, these are positive things. And you can be a giver, and you can also have moments where you are selfish. Being selfish doesn't take away from the fact that you are a giving, loving, worthy person. And we have to detach the two. It's not always so black and white. Well, if I'm a giver, then it's impossible for me to be selfish. If I'm selfish, it's impossible for me to be a giver. No, two things can exist at once. You can be a giver with boundaries. You can be a giver who understands that in order for you to give effectively and to show up as your best self and create the magic that you're able to create for other people, you have to give to yourself before anyone or anything. That's okay too. And that is possible. I also think when we're facing these, I like to call them roadblocks, um, a lot of times it's not that we're incapable of changing. It's not that we're incapable of breaking these habits or these ways of being, but it's that we know we are able to and we know that we have the power to. But because it's so unfamiliar, we procrastinate. We're just afraid of it because it's unfamiliar. And even more than that, we know we have the potential to change. We know we have the ability to push through, to level up, to really honor ourselves, but we're afraid of the consequences. Who in my life am I going to lose or end up in bad terms with because I decided to do this thing for myself that they're not used to seeing me do? Am I allowed to become this new version of myself and still keep the same company? Usually the answer is no. And so a lot of us procrastinate choosing ourselves. A lot of us are afraid, right? It's unfamiliar, but we know we can do it. We're just afraid of what the consequences will be. We have to understand that it's always going to be a trade off. There are going to be some people that are pissed that you have boundaries. They are going to feel like because you're giving so much to yourself, then you no longer have space in your life for them, which is actually the opposite. But if someone gets mad at you for setting a boundary and for choosing to do something for yourself that is going to actually help you grow and succeed and get closer to the person that you want to be or achieve something big, why are they in your life? And so a lot of times we're not even just afraid of changing something for ourselves because we're uncomfortable. We're afraid of making other people uncomfortable. But baby, if you have to sit with that discomfort, then so do they. And why is it that a choice that you make for yourself, something that makes them uncomfortable? Do we want people in our lives like that? I don't. And finally, I think as women, we struggle to receive. We are taught to give before we receive. For any of you that, grew up with men or dating a man or, if you've just had any sort of relationship with a man, platonic, romantic, whatever, familial, whatever, you know that there is this level of entitlement that they carry. And I'm not going to sit here and say whether it's good or bad. Obviously, it depends on the context. But one thing that I've learned from the men in my life is they walk around as if they are already deserving of the things that they want, right? There is this almost delusional confidence that they are deserving of what they desire. And they are always open to receiving. Women, on the other hand, walk on eggshells and feel like in order for them to get the things that they desire, it has to be hard. It has to be a struggle, and they have to give something first, whether it's their time, whether it's their energy, whether it's their money, whether it's their emotions. They have to give something before they are allowed to receive something. We do not need to give something before we receive something. That's not always the case, and we have to break that mindset. I noticed this firsthand in my own relationship where there was a time when I felt like I wasn't being the best partner. because I was going through a lot mentally, and I felt almost like ashamed for going through a hard time, for not being happy all the time, for being stressed out, for not feeling like my best self. Like I was ashamed of myself. And I felt like my partner didn't deserve that. And it really gave me anxiety. Like I was like, "Oh, what if he leaves because I'm not showing up as my best self every single day, because I'm not happy every single day?" And we had that conversation, and he was like, "I love you for who you are, not what you can do for me. You're a person, you go through things, we all do, and I don't think any of that defines who you are. Like, you're allowed to have a bad day. You're allowed to have a bad couple of weeks. Like, that's life, and you're a person, and I love you for who you are." And that was really eye opening for me. And it made me think about the way that I thought about myself and the way that I treated myself in moments where I wasn't at 100%, where I didn't have the capacity to pretend to be like I was okay. And that's a huge mindset that we have to break, that in order to be valued, in order to be loved, we have to give something first. No, we need to open ourselves up to receiving as well, and give ourselves permission to do that. I think there's also something to be said about just letting things flow. Like, for example, something I've been working on is building a community, a strong foundation with my friends. And as you know, relationships take time, they take energy. You have to water them, and you have to provide for them. You have to show up, and you have to be loyal, and you have to just you have to be like, a good friend. And what I realized, however, is you can overwater that plant, and you can overwater that relationship. If you are constantly making yourself available to people, yes, to some degree, maybe the relationship will really flourish because you're giving it all of your time and attention. But then you're also neglecting, like at the same time, neglecting these other areas of your life that you do care about and that also require your attention. But you're putting all of your energy into this one thing that at the end of the day isn't the only thing that you care about. And so what happens is it builds up this sort of resentment within you that you caused because you didn't set a boundary. I also think that creating distance between certain things, whether it's, a goal that you have for work, creating distance between how hard you're working to reach that goal, creating distance between you and a friend in a healthy way where you're no longer available every single Saturday to hang out. Maybe you're available twice a month, once a month, but you're still available to text and FaceTime. It shows you the true nature of those relationships, of those areas of your life. If you are working towards something at work, like a promotion, for example, and you're busting your butt, but you're busting your butt so hard that you are burning yourself out, you're not really allowing the seeds that you've planted, you're not allowing them to blossom because you're constantly watering them and putting dirt on them, and you're not giving them room to breathe. And we have to do that. We have to treat ourselves that same way. There are going to be moments where you're required to show up and give a little bit more. And there are going to be other times when you need to lay back and receive and just let the universe, let God do their thing. So now that we've identified why, I want us to identify some of the solutions that we can put in place to get us to a space where we're comfortable choosing ourselves. I am not fully there yet. I am still very much struggling with this, but I'm a lot closer to being able to do this without feeling any sort of discomfort than I was a year ago. So right now I'm progressing in this and it's becoming so much more of a need for me. And that's why I wanted to talk about it and why I wanted to have an open conversation about it. Because I know if I'm struggling to go through this, other women are too. But that doesn't mean that we can't begin to change some things now or to reframe our mindset now and put these things in place and practice them in this moment, right? So we're going to hop into that. The first thing that we want to do is adopt a mindset of we deserve to receive regardless of if we give. We already went into this, but it's a huge thing and we need to do some work around that. When you open yourself up to receive, it's amazing the way that the universe rewards you because you're not acting out of desperation, you're not acting out of fear or anxiety. You're letting things flow, and that's when you will reap the rewards. We also need to reframe our mindset to understand that you can find a balance between giving and receiving. It's not one or the other. You can be someone who identifies as a giver who also very much loves to receive. And you can be someone who receives but also cares deeply about giving and is a natural giver. We have to rebuild our relationship with giving. Can we give in a way that doesn't take away from us, doesn't drain us, doesn't leave us feeling unmotivated, feeling unfulfilled, feeling resentful? We have to learn to give in a healthy way, meaning checking your pulse, seeing where you are mentally, emotionally. Sometimes you just don't have it to give. Sometimes you really only have capacity for yourself and your needs, and that's completely okay. But we have to get okay with it. We can say, I know that's fine. Like, I love myself and I deserve to have space to just do my own thing and to just focus on myself. But are you practicing that? Are you embodying that mindset? We have to get into a space where that becomes the norm for us. And we have to understand that on the journey to getting there, we're going to be very uncomfortable because it's not something that we're used to. It's going to piss some people off. But you know what? You're doing it for you because you're tired of feeling stuck. You're tired of being in this space where everyone is progressing and you're the one that's living up to the best version of yourself because you're putting everyone else before you. We also have to adopt a mindset of boundaries are an act of not only self-love but external love as well. When I'm setting a boundary, it's not just because I need it, but it's also because other people probably need it as well. It can be if I set a boundary with a friend who never sets their own boundaries, maybe they'll learn that, hey, I can set a boundary and still be loved too. Because I still love that person even though they just set a boundary with me. I still think that person is a good friend even though they just set a boundary. Sometimes when you make yourself too available to people, you're teaching them learned helplessness. You're teaching them that whenever you're stressed out, whenever you need help, I'm the person that you can come to. I'm the person you should come to. And what happens is they don't take accountability. They begin to depend on you for your gifts of being a giver, being someone that lights people up and empowers them. And in a way, you're doing the opposite of what you're setting out to do. You're actually taking away their power because you're taking away their autonomy and their choice and their their role in their own process. I'm going to be a friend who's here for you and who listens to you. And if you seek my advice on occasion, that is fine. But if I am your go-to person for everything, you need an answer from me for everything, then you're not learning anything. And what's the point? We're supposed to be learning from each other. So it actually is an act of self-love, not making yourself so available to other people, and it is loving towards them as well. We also want to detach ourselves from this idea that our value is directly correlated to how much we give. Sometimes I have 0% to give, and I'm still worthy of love. I'm still worthy of respect and kindness. And that shouldn't change whether I'm giving 100% or I'm giving nothing, because I love myself. I like myself. I know what I'm able to offer. But it's not even about what you're able to offer. It's about the fact that you are a human being. You are a soul living in this experience, and you are love. Like, you are God's child. You are love. We are all love. And so we give it and we receive it, and we are naturally, just by existing, deserving of it. It's like when a baby is born, their parents immediately fall in love with them. Why? The baby hasn't done anything crazy. The baby's not out here cooking them dinner or like doing backflips or like, I don't know. The baby's just being a baby. Like, they're just sitting there being cute, okay? And we love them anyway, and we want to give them the world anyway. And it's crazy how when we get older, we don't think about ourselves in that way. Like, that baby is just a being here existing, and because they exist, we love them. A lot of us feel that way about our pets. So why can't we feel that way about ourselves? And I know that this is an issue that is causing us to feel stagnant, causing us to feel like we are not progressing. Ultimately, we need to recognize that we are getting in our own way when we are not choosing ourselves. When we are actively choosing other people, we are choosing their dreams, we are choosing their desires, we are choosing their goals, their improvement, their development over our own. And that's why you see them progressing and you feel stuck in the same place. And that's why you're frustrated, and that's why you're resentful. You're getting in your own way. You are procrastinating sometimes, and that's another thing. Sometimes we use showing up for people as a way to procrastinate, as a method of avoiding stepping into our fullest potential and our fullest power. Stop procrastinating. Stop letting other people be so available to you. Stop being so accessible to everybody. You and your dreams and what you want in this life, that's number one. Well, that and God, but I do think those two things are very connected. I do think that God has a big say in the visions that you have and the things that you want for yourself and for the dreams you have when it comes to impacting the world. Like, I think God plays a huge role in that. But that comes before anything else. I hope that this episode resonated with you. I hope you took away something meaningful and valuable to you. Hopefully some mindset shifts took place. And I would love to revisit this conversation maybe with another person, you know, on the pod, or maybe in like 6 months, a year from now, and kind of check in on my progress, hear how you guys have progressed. If you did find this episode valuable in any capacity, or if you just enjoyed it at all. So yeah, at this point in this episode, I'm feeling kind of loopy because I've been talking at my camera for like 2 hours and I'm kind of done. But what I will say is I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this topic. Like, what is your experience with choosing yourself? Have you gotten to a space where you are comfortable in doing that? Have you ever struggled with this? Are you still currently struggling with this? If you have already gotten through this, what habits have you put in place or have broken to get to that point? Leave a review if you liked this video, if you're on YouTube and you want more content of this sort. Go ahead and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or night whenever you're watching this. New episodes. The dream is to come out every Wednesday, but I'm just going to say once a week for now because I'm still figuring all of that stuff out. But I wanted to just start, getting, I just wanted to start creating. So, yeah, thank you all so much for watching and for tuning in. And we will talk next week. Okay. Bye.